Hi everyone, we're from SecCast. Today we're gonna talk about 51% attack, about what it is and what should be done to prevent this kind of attack. It's widely used and discussed in blockchain world. Here is our overview. We will get started from blockchain background, then what the meaning of it, 50% attack, and the real case in the real world. Finally, we will talk about how to defend this attack. Let's get started to the blockchain background. First, its concept is to store the data that comes in shape of blocks, that is block are chained together and make data immutable. When block is chained, anyone can see to this block. So it's quite awesome because it allows us to keep track of this data without being risk that anyone can tamper or change it. And we will no longer does require bank or government to control. Let's move to 50% behind theory. That is contains of two content. First, the meaning of it and how does it work. Let's get started to figure what the meaning of it. The 51% attack, or we can call double spend attack, is a minor of group that trying to spend their crypto on the blockchain twice. They try to double spend them. The goal of this isn't always to double spend crypto, but more often to cast risk credit over a certain crypto or blockchain by affecting its integrity. Here's a brief example of how double spend attack really means. Let's say that I want to spend 10 Bitcoin on my luxurious car, maybe my expensive thing. So the car gets delivered a few days later, and my bitcoins are transferred from me to car company. By performing 51% attack, the bitcoin on blockchain, I can reverse bitcoin transfer. If I succeed this attack, I will process both car and my bitcoins, allowing me to spend those bitcoin again. To understand how does 50% work, you need to understand these two things, which is how blockchain works and how many add transactions. So how blockchain works, there are 6 steps to understand. So now let's get move on to the first step.
Alright, let's start off with an example, the Bitcoin blockchain. The Bitcoin blockchain is the oldest blockchain in existence. The blocks on the Bitcoin blockchain consist of approximately 1 megabyte of data each. The data on the Bitcoin blockchain exclusively exists out of transaction data in regard to Bitcoin transactions. It is a giant track record of all Bitcoin transactions that have ever occurred, all the way back to the very first Bitcoin transaction. Let's assume that a blockchain stores transaction data just like Bitcoin blockchain. Here is an example. Assume that there are 3 blocks all containing some transaction data. Document 1 would then chronologically describe the first transaction that have occurred up to 1 megabyte, whereafter the next transaction would be described in document 2 up to another megabyte, and so on. These blocks are now being linked together. To do this, every block gets an unique digital signature that corresponds to exactly the string of data in the block. If anything inside a block changes, the block will get a new signature. Let's say block 1 registers 2 transactions, transaction 1 and transaction 2. Imagine that transaction made up a total of 1 megabyte. This block of data now gets a signature for this specific string of data, which will explain how signature created later. Let's say the signature is x3 and 2. Remember, a single digit change to the data in block 1 would now cause it to get a completely different signature. The data in block 1 is now linked to block 2 by adding the signature of block 1 to the data of block 2. The signature of block 2 is now partially based on the signature of block 1 because it is included in the string of the data in block 2. Let's picture adding block 3 to the chain of block. The signature link the block to each other, making them a chain of block. Now imagine if the data in block 1 is alerted. The signature in block 1 is now changed from x3 and 2 to w10o. Instead, the signature w10 and o does not match the signature that was previously added to the block 2 anymore. The block 1 and 2 are now considered no longer changed to each other. This indicated to other users of the blockchain that some data in block 1 was alerted, and because the blockchain should be immutable, they reject this change by shipping back to their previous record of the blockchain, where all the blockchain are still changed together. The only way that an alertion can stay undetected is if all the blocks stay changed to each other. This means for the alertion to go undetected, the new signature of block 1 must replace the old one in the data of block 2. But if the data of block 2 change, this will cause block 2 to have different signature as well. Let's say the signature of block 2 is now PP4 instead of 9BC. Now block 2 and block 3 are no longer changed together. The blocks on a blockchain are publicly available to anyone. So, if an alertion is supposed to stay undetected on blockchain, all the blocks need to stay properly changed. This means that alertion a single block requires a new signature for every other block that comes after it all the way to the end of the chain. This is considered to be near impossible. This is how signature is created. So, let's picture block again. Block 1 is a record of only one transaction. This specific string of data now requires a signature. In blockchain, the signature is created by cryptographic hash function. A cryptographic hash function is a very complicated formula that takes any string of input and turn it out into a unique 64-digit string output. Here is an example. If a single digit of the input change, including a space bar changing a capital letter or adding a period, for example, the output will totally different. A period was added to the word. The specific string of data is changed. Okay, let's have a look at the block 1 again. In block 1, Thomas sent 100 Bitcoin to David. The string of data of this block is block 1 Thomas minus 100 David plus 100. If the string of data is inserted in the hash function algorithm, the output signature will be like this. The signature is now added to the data of the block 2. Let's say that David now transfer 100 Bitcoin to Jimmy. The blockchain now look like this. The string of data of block 2 is now the string of data from the block plus the signature from the previous block. And the signature of this block will be like this. So the cryptographic hash function is used to create the digital signature for each unique block. There is a large variety of hash function, but hash function that is used by Bitcoin blockchain is SHA-256 hashing algorithm. But how do the signatures stop someone from simply inserting a new signature for each block after adding one? The answer is that only hash signatures that meet certain requirements are acceptable on the blockchain. This is the mining process and is explained in the next step. A signature doesn't always qualify. A block will only be accepted on the blockchain if the digital signature starts with the same pattern, such as a consecutive number of a zero. For example, only block with a signature started with at least 10 consecutive zeros qualify to be added to the blockchain. However, every string of data has only one unique hash bound to it. In order to find the block signature that meet the requirement, the string of data of a block needed to be changed repeatedly until the specific string of data leads to the signature started with 10 zeros. Because the transaction data and metadata need to stay the way they are, a small piece of data is added to each block that has no purpose existing for being changed repeatedly in order to find an illegible signature. This piece of data is called nonce of block. The nonce is completely random a string of number. The process of repeatedly changing the nonce and hash the block data to find the illegible signature is called mining, and it's what the miner do. Anyway, important thing to understand is that finding an illegible signature is very hard. As discussed previously, alerting a block will unchain it from the subsequent block. In order for an alerted block to be accepted by the rest of the network, it needs to be changed to the subsequent block again where this is going on. It was previously expanded that this requires every block that comes after it to get a new signature, and that signature need to meet the requirement. Giving all of this block a new signature will be very costly and time consuming. Let's say a corrupt miner has alerted a block of transaction and is now trying to calculate a new signature for the subsequent block in order to have the rest of the network accepted his chain. The problem for him is the rest of the network is also calculating a new signature for the new block. The corrupt miner will have to calculate the new signature for this block too as they are being added to the end of the chain. After all, he needed to keep all of the blocks linked, including the new one, unless the miner has more computational power than the rest of the network combined. He will never catch up with the rest of the network finding signature. Millions of users are mining on the Bitcoin blockchain, and therefore, it can be assumed that a single bad actor or entity on the network will never have more computational power than the rest of the network combined. Means the network will never accept any change on the blockchain, making the blockchain immutable. Once the data has been added to the blockchain, it can never be changed again. The Bitcoin blockchain follows a governance model of democracy, and therefore update the record of transactions according to what the majority of its users say is the truth. The blockchain protocol does this automatically by always following the record of the longest blockchain that it has, because it assumes that this chain is represented by the majority. After all, it requires the majority of the computational power to create the longest version of the blockchain. This is how the majority of the network reject and alert block automatically because it is no longer changed to the longest chain. Now, we know how blockchain work. Let's get into the another topic. Have you ever wondered how the mining process on the blockchain world works, or how transaction gets confirmed and is added to the blockchain? Here is how transaction is processed on a blockchain. It is all described in this step. As you can see in the picture, first, a user signs off on a transaction from their wallet application, attempting to send certain crypto or token from them to someone else. Then, transaction is broadcasted by wallet application and is now awaiting to be picked up by miner on the according blockchain. As long as it is not picked up, it's held in a pool of unconfirmed transactions. This pool is collection of unconfirmed transactions on the network that are waiting to be processed. After that, miner select transaction from this pool to form a block of transaction. In order to achieve adding this block of transaction to the blockchain, they need more hashing than the other miner. When a miner finds a solution, it will be broadcasted to the other miner and they will only verify it if all transactions inside the block are valid according to the exit record of transaction on the blockchain. Now, we both understand how blockchain works and how mining added transaction. Let's get back to the main topic, how 51% attack work. As blockchain protocol is basically form of governance, this is the reason why 51% can be done by stealthing, mining, and less. Assume that a malicious miner tries to reverse existing transaction. Normally, when a miner finds a solution, it's supposed to be broadcasted to all other miners so that they can verify it. But a corrupt miner can create an offspring of the blockchain by not broadcasting the solution of his block to the rest of the network. In the other words, self-mining. So there are now two versions of the blockchain. One version that is being followed by the uncorrupted miner and the one is being followed by the corrupted miner. The corrupted miner is now working on his own version of the blockchain and is not broadcasting it to the rest of the network. The rest of the network doesn't pick up on this chain because after all, it hasn't been broadcasted. It is isolated to the rest of the network. The corrupted miner can now spend all his Bitcoin on the trustful version of the blockchain. This one that's all the other miners are working on. Let's say he spend it on Lamborghini for example. On the trustful blockchain, His Bitcoin are now spent. Meanwhile, he doesn't include this transaction on his isolated version of the blockchain. On his isolated version of the blockchain, he still has those Bitcoin. Meanwhile, he's still picking up blocks and he verifies them all by himself on his isolated version of the blockchain. This is where the trouble starts. The blockchain does it by always following the longest chain. After all, the majority of the miners added blocks to their version of the blockchain faster than the rest of the network. So, longest chain means majority. This is how the blockchain determines which version of the chain is the truth, and in turn what all balance of wallets are based on, unless it's now started. Whoever has the most hashing power will add block to their version of the chain faster. The corrupted miner will now try to add block to his isolated blockchain faster than the other miner added. The corrupted miner will now try to add block to his isolated blockchain. Corrupted miner will now try to add block to his isolated blockchain faster than the other miner add block to their blockchain. The trustful one. As soon as the corrupted miner created the longer blockchain, he suddenly broadcasted his version of the blockchain to the rest of the network. The rest of the network will now detect that this corrupted version of the blockchain is actually longer than the other one that they were working on, and the protocol forced them to switch to this chain. Now, the corrupted blockchain is considered the trustful blockchain, and all transactions that are not included on this chain will never be resolved immediately. The attacker has spent his Bitcoin on the Lamborghini before, but this transaction was not included in this chain, so he is now once again control of those Bitcoin and able to spend them again. This is a double spend attack. It is commonly referred to as a 51% attack because the malicious miner will require more hashing power than the rest of the network combined in order to add the block to his version of the blockchain faster, eventually allowing him to build the longer chain. Okay, next we will show you the real attack in the real world. As you can see in this graph, here is some example of real attack that was happened in the past. Okay, let's get in deep. First, let's talk about Fidelcoin in June 2013. First, let's talk about Fidelcoin in June 2013. 16,000 coins were double spent in an attack on a Litecoin clone known as Fidelcoin in June 2013. 16,000 coins were double spent in an attack on a Litecoin clone known as Fidelcoin. Back in the day, this coin ranked relatively high in the cryptocurrency chart. In January of 2014, a mining pool called Cash.io got so big that it's nearly 51 of the total mining power. This of course created some panic to the Bitcoin community, but was fixed shortly after by a miner who left the pool in order to balancing things out. Additionally, pool committed to 40% limit for its future operation. In May 2018, Bitcoin Gold. More than 18 million were stolen to double spent in a Bitcoin Gold 51% attack conducted by unknown malicious actor. Exchange tried to fight off the attack by waiting for a long amount of confirmation before approving transaction, but that didn't seem to help a lot. In December 2018, WorldCoin. 4 different attacks on the WorldCoin network concluded in the thief around $100,000. WorldCoin is relatively anonymous coin ranked below 200 in cryptocurrency chart. 2019 Bitcoin Cash. Two Bitcoin Cash mining pool BTC.com and BTC.top carried a 51% attack on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain in order to stop an unknown miner from taking coin that he wasn't supposed to have access to, while the network forget even true. Some would argue that 51% attack was done to help the network. It still demonstrates the power these two mining pools have over the network. As you can see from the historical case, main thing that help preventing 51% attack is the decentralization of the miner. As long as no single entity has control over 51% of mining power, the network is safe.
There are other concepts to prevent the attack. First is merge mining. The idea is that small currency generally have small number of users and nodes, so it's easier to gain 51% majority attack. The idea is to combine mining of the smaller currency to be the larger one. And the second is the penalties for delay block. It drives cost of the attack up and further reducing an incentive to do an attack. The miner with delayed block are penalized. Next, this is the case example from two architecture. First in Cabo cryptocurrency and second in Horizon architecture. Let's get moved to the first one from Cabo cryptocurrency, which is prevent transaction cancellation. They propose this solution to disallow the transaction during switch to the alternative chain by adding the consensus rule that states an alternative chain should contain all transactions from the chain is to replace. In the case of reorganization of blockchain nodes, it will compare the transaction in the alternative chain and the main chain, and if at least one transaction is missing in the chain, they reject the reorganization. But what about the alternative chain that's not malicious? The all missing transaction will be added into the mempool of the nodes proposing the alternative chain, so they have chance to include those transactions into the next block. The node will be reorganized to the chain, and if the reorganization will take place if the chain is longer. This allows to unite the blockchain in the case of accident split by the longest chain rule when it's not an attack. What about the contradicting transaction for malicious? In the case of this, the node will end up in permanent chain split. Both chains will reject each other because each will lack transaction from the other. In this situation, the attacker will permanently lock himself in his alternative reality. From the photo, it is from the Cabo Crypto developer team try 51% attack, and the result is valid validation of alternative gets passed with no lost transaction. And it will reject malicious attack and cause conflict with the lack of transaction and fail to switch to alternative chain. And last year they posted they were successful on preventing 51% attack going to happen by detecting payment that are going to cancel transaction by offering alternative chain. So from the notice from the developer, they partially prevented it. Therefore, attacker lost larger transactions that already sent to Kuna exchange. Let's move to the second case, which is penalty system for delay block. Cryptocurrency startup Horizon was the victim of 51% attack that could have caused loss of millions of dollars. While there were no losses, the creator of Horizon wanted to make sure it never happened again, so they released a white paper of proposal to modify Satoshi consensus to enhance protection against 51% attacks. So considering the delay block is from the private mining, is a sort of double spend attack. So to alleviate the damage or make it less effective, they give penalty in the form of block acceptance delay. For example, assume scenario when there's two chains. You can see NB as normal block and malicious block as MB. As you can see, 117 to 120 are not going to be mined and be abandoned from the main chain because malicious block 119 was created and revealed to the public, and the network will start mining from this block. So to prevent this, white paper proposed something called fork acceptance delay, related to the amount of time that fork has been hidden from private network. The words of delayed mean the number of blocks for which adoption of new parallel chain will be postponed. For the adversary of main chain, they need to continue mine the malicious fork even after revealing it until delay is all count to the zero. To explain more, the number of delay blocks is described as delay function. The delay function is the difference between height of current main chain and height of receive block. So in the example, delay of malicious block 100 would be 16, from 16 in height of main minus by 0 with each height of received. So from example malicious block 100, that would have delay number 16. So malicious block 101 will have 15 until malicious block 116 will have 0, and 117 and 118 will have minus 1. So the summation of the delay function would be 133. So the adversary need to keep mining his fork after it became public for another 133 blocks. As you can see, when creating malicious block 120, the number of delay would be 100 33 minus 1. Thank you.